Seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
All right, let's move on to the mixture portion of the show. Richard picked out MopHead. I believe MopHead. What's MopHead's real name?
No idea.
No idea.
I know that he does have a mixing podcast, so he does seem to have been in the game for a while, but I don't know what his real name is.
So MopHead on all the flavors if you want to go check out all the recipes that he's created. I'll start off, Richard. Okay, so I mixed up Strawberry Bliss. Just to give an idea of what the recipe consists of, it consists of Bavarian cream, Inawera biscuits, so TFA, Bavarian cream, Inawera biscuit, TFA strawberry ripe, cap sugar cookie, cap sweet strawberry, and cap vanilla bean ice cream. So let's talk about the profile a little bit more. This is a shortcake, a strawberry shortcake. And you know, he uses Inawera biscuit, which is pretty scarce now, you know, and I've got the OG lying around somewhere, and I used it over here because I was really feeling this recipe when I read it. So yeah, I spared a little bit of my scarce resource, which is getting less and less and less. It's bugging me. Anyway, so he uses Inawera biscuit and sugar cookie here to create that biscuit, you know, and like a shortcake kind of feel to it. I have sugar cookie V1, so you know this mix really tastes super dope. You know, it's very buttery. The two biscuits blend very well together. You know, I was a little bit concerned with sugar cookie because it's quite high. It's 4% sugar cookie, and that can dominate in a recipe and flatten out everything else, and everything after a while just tastes like sugar cookie, right? So I guess, and that will happen over time, you know, because sugar cookie is 4%, and the only other concentrate that's at 4% here is sweet strawberry, which is not a potent strawberry, you know. So over time, I think this recipe might actually just start tasting very V1 sugar cookie if you use that. But, you know, Inawera biscuit and sugar cookie here gives you nice buttery, cakey notes. And then, you know, he uses TFA Bavarian cream, and this blends extremely well with those buttery notes in there. And also, I think, binds the strawberry as well. The strawberry is also super fused in here. However, you know, it doesn't really peak out as a super top note. But, you know, if you're thinking about eating a strawberry shortcake, you know, you're eating somebody, excuse me, you're eating something where, you know, everything kind of like blends together and nothing really sits super high at the top. So I totally understand this. So if you like the recipe, simply cannoli, and not totally over strawberry yet, this is definitely a mix you need to try. It needs time though. You know, he says 14 days. I put this on my magnetic stir at room temperature for 2.5 days. And I tasted it all the way through. On day one, you know, that Inawera biscuit was nowhere near ready. On day 2 in the morning, still a little bit concerned. Halfway through the day of the the third day, pretty much, that Inawera biscuit started turning, and you know, the buttery notes started coming through, and those funny little off notes started hanging out. Or hanging back a little bit more, which is pretty much exactly the same thing that happens to Simply Cannoli. And I know it is Inawera biscuit that does that, right? So all in all, I give this recipe a 3.5 out of 5. You're going to have to wait 2 weeks to enjoy it. And, the only reason why I didn't go 4 is because, the strawberry didn't peak nicely. He uses sweet strawberry and strawberry ripe over here. So even over time, that strawberry ripe is going to fade back. Sweet strawberry is not that potent. And this is all down to personal taste now, because, I'm a bit of a strawberry snob. So I really want that strawberry because the strawberry is the hero here for me. Now, interesting, in his description here, he talks about sweet strawberry and strawberry ripe, an obvious but tried and true strawberry duo, a little more sweet strawberry to keep this recipe more on the dessert side, right? It's the main profile in this recipe up front and the initial flavor of the vape. But then if you go on, and you read what he said about sugar cookie and biscuit, he said, this is the shortbread cookie part of the recipe. I agree, this is perfectly done. I'm gonna use this. Both of these flavors have buttery notes that pairs excellent with strawberry. The biscuit really helps add some texture to the recipe, while the sugar cookie is most of the flavor profile. So, in his description, he talks about strawberry being the initial flavor, the main profile, and then he talks about sugar cookie being most of the flavor profile. So, I'm not seeing here in the description that either one of them is really the true hero here. It feels like what he's saying is they should be blended, and if that's the case, then this is more of a 4 than a 3.5. But yeah, really enjoying it. I mixed up 30 mils of this, or I spun up 30 mils of this, and I'm clearly down to about 15 over here. And I'm definitely going to be finishing this. So thanks, MopHead.
All right. I mixed up 3 of MopHeads. I mixed up Eula, Brahmagupta, and Angry Apple Stone Cinnamon. What I like about MopHead stuff, not all of it, but some of it, is that he's obviously a mathematician or a math teacher or something, because he does have quite a keen interest in mathematicians. Some of his recipes are named after famous mathematicians like Euclid and Brahmagupta and so on. And he gives very interesting notes on them. Giving basically life stories of the mathematicians and why they, what they achieved and so on. I'm not really sure what that has to do with the juice, but it's certainly a lot more interesting than, mix this up, you won't regret it, which is what you normally find on ATF recipes. So I'll start off with Angry Apple Stone Cinnamon, which obviously isn't a mathematician mix. But the reason I was drawn to this recipe in particular was because he uses FA breakfast cereals, which I just got at that time and didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do with it. So I thought I'd try this and see how he used it. This is a fairly simple, it's an apple cinnamon cereal vape. So he uses breakfast cereals and capped cinnamon Danish swirl and a little bit of AP for his cereal base. He then adds capped double apple, excuse me, for the apple note. And then he adds milk via 3 creams, which is cream fresh, cream milky undertone by OO, and Vienna cream by FA.
That's a lot of cream, eh? Yeah.
It's a lot of cream. Each one of them comes in at 1.5, so it's actually 4.5% creams by the end. The total percentage is quite high as well. It's 14.25% for the recipe. So I mixed this up. I gave it a good long steep. It was steeping for well over a month. He ranks it as 14 days. I had it steeping for over a month, so certainly not any steeping problems there. It's an interesting mix for me. I think part of the problem I'm having with it, he describes it as FA breakfast cereal is an amazing wheat-type cereal flavor, a perfect base for this recipe, and thank God we don't have to rely on subpar cereal concentrates now like in the past. Now that immediately was interesting for me because I don't get an amazing wheat-type cereal flavor. I do get a cereal base, but what I'm getting just as prominently as the base is a chocolate. And I don't know if it's just me. I mean, FA obviously intended there to be chocolate in because they say it in the description of the flavor that it's got chocolate in. I'm one of the few people I know that actually taste the chocolate in there. Most mixers don't seem to. Most of the reviews I've read of this flavor, people don't mention the chocolate at all. So I thought, well, this is going to be interesting because now he doesn't appear to be a chocolate taster in FA breakfast cereal. So let's see how this, I know I'm going to taste it. So let's see how this plays out. And sure enough, I am getting a note of chocolate in. What I'm finding is that the breakfast cereals, the Cinnamon Danger Swirl and the Settled Pyrazine, makes quite a heavy cereal base. Ideally, I would want a cereal to be quite light because real life cereals are pretty light. I mean, cornflakes and Rice Krispies are as near as darn it weightless. You know, it's not something that has a heavy presence in real life foodstuffs. So I'm not really looking for a heavy bakery. I'd be looking for more just a very light accent. I think the Cinnamon Danger Swirl in this bogs it down a little bit, makes that cereal base perhaps a little bit heavier than it should be. But I can also see why he used the 2.5% Cinnamon Danger Swirl, because that is the percentage at which the cinnamon is doing enough to register in the overall profile. The problem for me, I think, is that cap double apple isn't coming through strongly enough. I can sense apple in the background trying to peek through, but I think it's the chocolate notes in the FA breakfast cereals is hindering that apple note from coming through for me. So what I'm tasting is mainly quite a heavy cereal with a cinnamon note that's there, and behind it there's this kind of weird blend of a milk chocolate with apple, and the chocolate is kind of dominating the apple. And then, strangely enough, that 4.5% of creams combined also doesn't really come through. He says here the creams are rather light in this recipe, but they do add some nice mouthfeel and keep the overall recipe from feeling too dry.
Okay.
My feeling with it is that it's, instead of being a cereal with milk, it's more like a bakery that has been soaked with light cream. It's not really registering as a cereal to me. It's registering as a cream-soaked bakery.
Mm.
It's working quite well. The cinnamon works quite nicely, and even though it sounds odd, that sort of bizarre chocolate apple mix in the background, there's nothing really off about it. So I'm not getting any off notes about it, but it's not really true to profile for me. And I think what is causing that is the FA breakfast cereals in there. That chocolate note, I can't get past that chocolate note. I'll taste it where breakfast cereals is used in a juice. So what I would probably do is mix this again, but maybe replace that FA breakfast cereals with Cap Cereal 27.
Yeah, Cereal 27, yeah.
Yeah, and just see if that, dropping that chocolate note out of the cereal might help that Cap Double Apple just to stand out a little bit. What I might do as well, even though it's a cheat code, is just to add 1% or so of Fuji in there just to make that apple pop a little bit more. But what I'm feeling from this is I'm getting a kind of cinnamon semi-cereal, semi-bakery with not much apple in. And I mean, it's a pleasant vape, but it's just not that true to the profile for me. So that was Angry Apple Stone Cinnamon. Now we come to the first of the the first of the mathematician mixes, which is his Euler recipe. Now, Euler, I presume, refers to Leonhard Euler, who was a Swiss mathematician from the 18th century, who's renowned as the most prolific mathematician of all time. He apparently published and wrote more about maths than anybody else. And he also looks startlingly like Skittles Ninja. If you go to the Wikipedia page on Leonard Euler, you'll see there's a portrait of him there, and it's actually it could be Skittles' twin brother. So that's maybe where the vaping link comes in. But here again, we have our old friend FA breakfast cereals. Now, this is a sweet coconut and cream pie, and here I definitely see more place for FA breakfast cereals and that chocolate note, because what he's doing is he's overlapping flavors here. We've got FA breakfast cereals, Flavora chocolate Deutsch, FA coconut, Flavora cream, Flavora sweet coconut, and TFA whipped cream. Now, you've got obviously a very prominent chocolate note in the chocolate Deutsch, which will be complemented by that chocolate note in the breakfast cereals. You've also got a coconut note in chocolate Deutsch, which again has the FA coconut and the Flavora sweet coconut to complement it. So we're looking at 2 layers of chocolate and 3 layers of coconut with a kind of cakey pie type base, the breakfast cereals and the chocolate Deutsch together, and lightened up by whipped cream with Flavora cream to sort of blend everything together. Now he says here it's a sweet coconut and cream pie with just the right amount of chocolate. Now for me, chocolate Deutsch is never the right amount of chocolate. It dominates always. To me, it's a flavor like FA tiramisu or dark bean. I can't use it without it being the top note in the flavor. It's just got this incredibly rich and potent chocolate flavor that cuts through everything, even at half a percent. So I was very interested to see, was it going to be just the right amount of chocolate? And he adds, I wanted to keep the chocolate in the background in this recipe while pushing the coconut to the upfront main notes of the recipe. FA breakfast cereal brings a nice and light bakery crust that complements both the coconut and chocolate. I have no problems here with the breakfast cereal and chocolate Deutsch base. That gives us a nice pie, cake, quite a filling, dense, smooth, rich type of base for that chocolate and coconut to play on top of. I must admit, I haven't steeped it for the amount of time that it requires. He says 7 steep days. I steeped it for 3 before tasting it. The coconut is upfront, not wildly so, but it certainly registers on the inhale in the first part of the exhale. But again, and this is just chocolate Deutsch, your takeaway from the vape is going to be chocolate, because the longer the exhale goes on, the more that Flavora chocolate Deutsch note comes to the fore. And after you finish the exhale, the whole back of your throat is just coated with this very rich, quite dark, and very distinctive Flavora chocolate Deutsch flavor. Now, maybe it'll sit down a bit more in the steep. Maybe it'll, sink back a little bit into the base, and I'm hoping that it does. I think it's the right amount of chocolate in terms of the overall profile. I was quite impressed by the fact that the Deutsch doesn't take over everything. It's there and it's prominent. You won't miss it, but it's not killing the coconut. Let's put it that way, which is, I think, what he was aiming for. So the mix still feels a bit rough. It feels like an unsteeped mix. I would imagine, particularly as Flavora cream and TFA whipped cream work their magic and blend everything together, that this will come together and become very silky and smooth at around the 3-week mark. But I have to say that the mix, from what I tried, definitely shows a lot of promise. There's a pleasing flavor balance. The chocolate is prominent, the coconut is prominent, the base is there. So I think he balanced this quite nicely, or as nicely as chocolate Deutsch can be balanced, because it is such a prominent flavor. So I'm impressed with this one, and I'll probably give it another 10 days steep or so before doing my final taste on it, just to see how that works.
Yeah, much less creamier, because we're talking about 2.7% of so that is, if you look at the total, 6.5% total flavoring, which is not a lot. That's great.
Yes, it's much lower, yeah.
And then creams is 2.7%.
The thing is, again, with chocolate Deutsch, there's 0.75% in there, which on its own is almost enough as a one-shot. I mean, it is an exceptionally potent flavor. And it's also, I mean, when I rinsed out my glass and my amber glass mixing bottle from this, I had to soak it in salt water for about an hour just to get that chocolate out of the glass, not even the plastic, but the glass. So if you get chocolate Deutsch, for heaven's sakes, don't use it in a squonk bottle, because you are never going to use that squonk bottle for anything again. I think if you want to make the absolute bottle-killing recipe, take Favora chocolate Deutsch and TFA honeydew and put those two
together.
together. You will never get that flavor out of your atty or out of the bottle ever again.
Yeah.
It is really potent. Look, it comes out, but it takes a lot of salt and a lot of hot water for it to come out.
How much did you
Now
whip up of this?
30 mils.
So after this, you'll probably smell like chocolate Deutsch for the rest of your life.
It's surprising also how light it is. It's not going to be a coil killer. I mean, the Deutsch is quite a dark flavor. Now you can see that juice is as near as darn transparent. The Deutsch is quite dark, so you can see how little there is in there. It's just 0.75%. And even with that, you don't get it so much on the inhale, but on the exhale, it's just this blast of Favora chocolate. It just takes over everything. I mean, it's a lovely flavor, but really difficult to mix with because it just is such a bully. It just, kicks everything in the pants and takes over. So I think in terms of what MopHead did with this, it's pretty good because the Deutsch doesn't dominate. So props to him for that one.
Mix it up again?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Although I think what I might do is just drop it down to maybe 0. I'll see how it sits down in the mix. If it sits down into the base and that chocolate dies down a little bit after 2 weeks, I'll keep it the same. If not, I might drop it to about 0.5 or so. I might be just extraordinarily sensitive to it, but it did strike me right from the get-go, even when I was single flavor testing it, that this is a flavor that doesn't take any prisoners. It really comes to the fore. So on to the third mix I tried of his, which is Brahmagupta, which is another mathematician, the Indian mathematician who invented, or maybe not invented, but certainly pioneered the concept of negative numbers and debt. Quite an interesting story here in his flavor notes about how the ancient Greeks had a problem with representing zero, because their question was, how can nothing be something? So Brahmagupta was the guy who kind of got that all sorted out, that zero could actually be a number. Although he did make a mistake. He thought that 1 divided by 0 would be 0. So probably not the most accurate mathematician in that sense, but pretty advanced for his time, considering he was around in like the 7th century or something like that. 628 AD. So he was pretty advanced for his time. These flavor notes actually have the most abrupt transition I've ever seen in any recipe notes ever. He says here, Brahmagupta's work with zero also led him to discover that quadratic equations had 2 solutions, which also led to Brahmagupta looking at quadratic equations with multiple variables. This is my banana cream pie recipe. Now, how those 2 sentences link is a mystery to me, but
hard cut.
Boom. That's a hard cut. That's a jump cut. That's going from Wayne to Jay Hayes and back again in like a single cut. I don't know quite. He says afterwards, this was a tricky one. Not as tricky as that cut, I can tell you that. So it's another quite high total percentage, 15.5. He's working with the time-honored TFA banana cream, LA banana cream mix, and then a whole bunch of very versatile flavors. FA almond, Inawera biscuit, and TFA graham cracker clear for his pie crust. Cap vanilla custard and cap vanilla whipped cream to sort of thicken up the filling, and then the banana cream and the 2 banana creams as the sort of top note. So that's his banana cream pie recipe. I've mixed this up before, so there wasn't really a need to steep it because it's a very distinctive juice, and I remembered it clearly from the last time I mixed it up. What I get from this, in the nicest possible way, is the cheapest and most and sweetest and most child appealing banana cream pie with bananas that have never seen a banana and whipped cream that's never seen a cow type of feel. It's got this completely artificial but totally charming, very bright, very sweet, very upfront, very in your face, almost candy sort of feel to it. And for me, this it doesn't need an authentic banana. Those two banana creams together, neither of them is particularly realistic. They're both that sort of Candy Runs feel, but it actually works because the whole thing hangs together like the sort of gooey mess that a child would just shovel into their mouth and have custard running down their chin for 20 minutes afterwards. It's just that kind of goopy, sweet, artificial, but in a nice way, gooey mess that you would find in a supermarket, and it works really well in that regard. It's quite smooth. It's very, very bright, and I find it quite addictive to vape. I think this works really, really well. He says he wanted to focus on the filling of the pie more than the crust, and I certainly get that. I get a lot of that moist but not wet filling, that sort of creamy, velvety filling. I'm not getting much texture from the pie crust, but as he said, he wasn't really aiming for that. The pie crust is just there as a base for the filling to sit on, and it does it really well. He's used quite commonly available ingredients. The total percentage is a little bit high at 15.5. That's higher than I would normally be looking at in a recipe. But a lot of these aren't particularly strong flavors. The banana creams you can jack up quite a bit. The graham cracker clear, the cap vanilla custard. These are all flavors that can be pushed up a little bit. So I don't see it. It's not overflavored for me. It's a nice, saturated but balanced vape. But if you like just a kid's treat, and you're not chasing absolutely authentic bananas, then this is a really bright and cheerful and very pleasant vape. I can vape this all day. It's a really good mix.
I also looked at this one, Richard, and the only reason I didn't mix this one up because this was a flavor profile that I pretty much started vaping on, strawberry creams and banana creams and milkshakes. And what role does the FA almond play here? That's the only one I don't have. So I'd first rule on FA almond.
Right. Well, as he says here, a touch of FA almond to create a nice bright crust. Now, I suppose it just pairs a bit with the biscuit and the graham cracker clear, maybe just to add that a slightly brighter note in the crust. I don't think it's making a major difference in there. I think if I left it out, I would struggle because FA almond it's quite a subtle flavor. I mean, it does work. Yeah, it does work at low percentages, but it's not. I don't think it's a flavor that's going to kill the recipe if you leave it out, type of thing. So he incorporated it into the crust, and fair enough, it probably does work well with the biscuit and the graham cracker clear. But the crust isn't the main part. It's that joyous TFA LA banana cream.
Banana, yeah.
Pairing that does it. I love both those flavors so much. I mean, they're not at all authentic, but they don't need to be.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to give this one a whiz then, or maybe just use some of the, because I've got LA and TFA banana cream. I might spare a little bit of Inawera biscuit here if you rated a good recipe, I've got FLV, but I think I've got sweet cream opposed to normal cream. It's very low, so I don't know if that will make a massive difference. There's creams already in the banana that's quite prominent, and then I've got the rest there, vanilla custard, vanilla whipped cream. Those two together are brilliant. I mean, vanilla custard and vanilla whipped cream, good combo.
Yeah, the whipped cream just lightens the custard a bit, so you're not getting that very heavy, rich, dense, eggy type of feel to it. And that's the whole thing about this recipe. It's very light, bright, cheerful, fluffy. It's not a heavy hitting bakery type flavor. It's just a really nice, cheerful, companionable vape to have.
Nice. Okay, any other comments, Richard?
No, that was about it. So congrats to MopHead, particularly for his notes. I've read through all his mathematician recipe notes and really interesting stuff. So he's obviously a guy who's a keen student of maths, probably a mathematician in his job as well.
Yeah. The same here from my side. Had fun mixing up the Strawberry Bliss. Definitely going to finish it up. So thank you so much for putting out these recipes. Keep on doing that. Guys, if there's any comments or questions around these recipes that we didn't quite cover in the show, please feel free to just comment below and we'll get back to you. Thank you very much, guys.